Welcome to Coffee, Culture, and the Capital with Sophia and Greg. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We have all sorts of things to talk with you guys about today. We're going to talk about some good updates in regards to a case in regards to parental rights and children being exposed to things that they should not be exposed to in schools. We're going to dive into what is happening in California with this whole Save Girls Sports, CIF, Boys and Girls Sports situation, give you guys the most up-to-date information on that. We also saw some of the California state senators this week celebrate someone who had relationships, according to some different biographies, with minor boys. We're going to get into why are they celebrating something like that, what is going on, and a couple other updates. But with that, Greg, what are you drinking for coffee culture in the Capitol?
You know, it's summer's coming, and so I'm drinking a cold brew, and I kind of made it myself, put my own flavoring in, and I put too much because it's very sweet. But it's good.
There you go. I'm shocked you have an iced drink. You're not normally an iced drinker.
I know. What's happening? You're having an influence on me.
There you go. Yes, I have my iced Americano. So I'm drinking that because I need energy because we have a lot of things to chat about. But before we dive into it, as you guys are aware, we host different events at the state capitol up and down the state of California. And we wanted you guys, the podcast watchers and listeners, so if you're only listening on a podcast platform, maybe head to the YouTube channel so you can watch this. But we want you guys to be the first official viewers of our National Day of Prayer recap video. So let's check that out.
Throughout history, in times of great spiritual darkness, God's light has shone brightly through his people. Revivals have ignited even in the face of corruption and apathy. And that revival can begin today with us. The same God who raised Jesus from the dead, that same God is with us in California today.
Father God, we come before you today with an urgency. As we stand outside our state capitol, Lord, we're reminded that you are the ultimate authority above every law, above every leader, and above every institution. So, Lord, we humble ourselves. We acknowledge our great need for you, not just in our personal lives, but in this state and in this nation.
God, we know you're not done with California yet because we're still here. And as long as we're still here, we have a mission. And that mission is to pray against the evil and pray for life and pray for changed lives, Lord, as we continue to share your truth and the gospel message.
You said in the book of Psalms, who will stand up for you against the evil workers? Who will rise up for you against the workers of iniquity? And we say today, God, here are we. Send us, oh God. Here are we, oh God. Send us, oh God. We will stand in the gap. We will praise you, and we will not be afraid of the enemy.
Jesus said, "You are the light of the world. Let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven."
We know the battle is real. We see it every day. But we also know that greater is he who is in us than he who is in the world. This is God's state. These are God's people. And we will not surrender to the darkness.
Well, that was a great day that we had earlier this month. And we're definitely going to be doing something for the National Day of Prayer next year. So keep up to what we're posting, what we're sharing, our newsletter. So you're kept up to date with future events. We're going to tell you guys about a future event. Not just yet, though, so you got to keep watching. But Greg, there has been a whole story that we actually talked about on the podcast months ago about a situation with a book called My Shadow is Pink. And we saw a whole situation going on with that. So what is happening? What did this federal judge rule in this case?
Right. So this is a story coming out of a school district down in the Southern California, San Diego area, Encinitas Union School District, where there was an elementary school that had a buddy program. It's kind of a cool idea. They pair up fifth graders with kindergartners. And they have a fifth grader gets a buddy, and he kind of acts as his mentor. And they meet, once a week, and they read books, and they become friends, kind of like brothers and like sisters. The girls are paired up with the girls, and the boys are paired up with the boys. And so it was a program that was going fine until one day the book that the fifth grader was asked and required to give to his kindergartner buddy was about gender identity. And the book that he read to the young kid is called My Shadow is Pink. And it's about a young kid who doesn't like the typical things other boys like, right? He doesn't like the colors that boys like. He doesn't like the games and the activities. And as a result, he is told that his shadow is not blue like a boy's, but it's pink. So here's a boy who is trapped with this blue shadow. So this is all about gender identity. And this kind of thinking is more and more being infiltrated into our schools, that our sex, our gender is something based on feelings. And if you find yourself as a kid liking things as a boy that girls typically like, good. It could be that you are trapped in the wrong body. I mean, you have a boy's body, but you're really a girl, right? And so this book was read by the fifth grader to the kindergartner. The fifth grader was very uncomfortable with this whole idea. He didn't agree with it, but he didn't want to upset the teacher, so he read the book. And then afterwards, they did a little activity together, and they had to, the fifth grader had to ask the kindergartner what his shadow was, and then they did an outline with chalk in a colored chalk symbolizing what shadow this little boy had. The boy went home, told his parents what he was required to do. The parents were really upset, so they went to the school and said, please, you should have told us that this was going to come up. We would object. Our religious beliefs, we don't believe you can change your gender. Gender and sex are based on your biology, and it's no possible way you can be trapped in the wrong body. Your feelings don't determine your biology, right? Well, the school said, well, we can't opt your son out of these lessons because the state law requires that we do this. And gender identity is not something you can opt your student out of. And so they sued. They filed a lawsuit, and just the story is that they won a preliminary injunction, which means the judge decided that the school needs to let parents opt out of gender lessons as part of the mentoring program. And let me quote the judge here. He's from the U.S. District Court, Judge James Lawrence. He says, compelling individuals to mal-support for views they find objectionable violates the First Amendment. The judge concluded that the school's use of My Shadow is Pink in a mandatory buddy class is, and I quote, implicitly conveyed that the student endorsed the message and that gender can be a matter of one's choice and subject to change. And this is a message contrary to the young boy's own beliefs, which he did not wish to convey to his buddy. So more or less, the judge is saying, hey, you can't make a student mouth the state-approved views on gender and sexuality to someone else. And parents have a right to opt out. And this is a big deal because California tells parents all the time, as gender identity is brought up into social studies, into English, in math, and it's, books are being read in libraries about gender identity, their parents are being told, well, we can't let you opt your children out of those lessons. And so now we have a judge, a federal judge, saying the opposite. In this particular instance, in these mentoring programs, parents have a right to opt out. Doesn't matter what the state law says, it violates the Constitution, right? And this is interesting because the Supreme Court is now has already about to rule on a similar case in Maryland where parents were objecting to mandatory LGBTQ instruction to their children, and they wanted to opt their kids out. The parents were told they could not opt out of gender lessons. The Supreme Court is now considering a case on this and will make a decision soon about whether all schools in all districts throughout the country will have to allow parents to opt out of these type of lessons. So, and it looks like from the judges questioning during the hearing, the Supreme Court justices seem to be leaning towards upholding parental rights in this issue. So that's a positive thing happening here, not only in California, but throughout the country. Let's see. Hopefully, judges will protect us by enforcing the Constitution, which every legislator is said to swear to uphold. So,
yes. Yeah, no, that's great news. And for those of you tuning in, if you want to read more about that, learn more about the situation, definitely head to CaliforniaFamily.org. At our blog page, we have a recent story that dives in depth about all of that. Yep, you can see it there in Greg's hands. So we have that story. And another way to stay up to date with everything we're doing is, again, go to CaliforniaFamily.org and sign up for our newsletter. Every week, you'll get an email with a little update about what's happening in California and what's happening at our Capitol. And Greg, this week at our Capitol, we saw our state Senate vote on a resolution. And this resolution was to recognize May 22nd, actually today, as a recording, as Harvey Milk Day. And, it's who is Harvey Milk? What is going on? All these things. Before we dive into who Harvey Milk really is, let's watch a little clip about the legislator, the state senator who's authoring this bill, about him introducing it, and let's see how the state senators voted on this.
We're taking a moment to recognize individuals like the late Harvey Milk, and his example could not be more important. To set the right standard, the right example, the right attitude about what it means in a free society to value the intrinsic humanity and equality of each one of us. That is, after all, the American promise. Colleagues, I respectfully ask for an aye vote on SR 38.
Allen, Alvarado Gil, Archuleta, aye. Adeguin, aye. Ashby, aye. Becker, aye. Blakespeare, aye. Cabaldon, aye. Caballero, aye. Cervantes, Choi, Cortese, aye. Daly, Durazo, aye. Gonzalez, aye. Grayson, aye. Grove, Hurtado, Jones, Baird, aye. Limon, aye. McGuire, McNerney, aye. Manjavar, aye. Nilo, Ochoa Bog, Padilla, aye. Perez, Reyes, Richardson, aye. Rubio, aye. Sillarto, Smallwood Cuevas, aye. Stern, aye. Strickland, Umberg, aye. Valadares, Wahab, aye. Weber Pearson, aye. Wiener.
Senator Padilla moves to call. We will now move to item.
So that was the vote during the hearing, and there's a couple in there that went in and added their ayes to it. We saw all Democrats were the aye voters, except we did have one. We had one Republican actually vote yes on this, State Senator Valladares. she voted yes. And then it was all Republicans that sent no votes received. And so we saw that pass. But Greg, who really is Harvey Milk, and why should none of those senators, regardless of partisan or what party you are, vote for this?
Right. You think, now, why does this matter? I mean, it's a resolution. What are resolutions? Resolutions are not particular. They're not laws, as though they're not enforcing a particular behavior upon the public. It's simply making a moral statement. What resolutions do is they make a morality statement about a cause. They do that by many times by picking someone they think we should all admire, and then they encourage you to hold this person up in high regard and say, emulate this person, right, as a hero. And so that's what they've done with Harvey Milk. Now, Harvey Milk is the first openly gay legislator to be elected back in the 70s. He was elected to as a supervisor in San Francisco. And he was also a big LGBT activist. And so what his claim to fame was, he wanted people to be open and proud of his sexual behavior. He was promoting not only homosexuality, he was also promoting gay marriage, but something else in his life that a lot of people, it's known about him. He had, but most people don't talk about, because not even the legislators, they don't acknowledge this particular part of his life, the part of his life where he was known for having sexual relationships with younger men. And by younger men, I mean 16-year-olds down to 16. There's a biography about his life. It's called The Mayor of Castro Street. And they had to dedicate a whole chapter to his sexual relationship with a 16-year-old when he was 33. Now, that's statutory rape. And so this is part of his life. It's not a hidden thing, but it's not really talked about much. And it really is outrageous that we continue to promote him as someone young people should follow, right? I mean, his behavior would prevent him from even being a teacher, because you can't have people who teachers who have sex with minors. That prevents them from being teachers, right? And so, sadly, this is the morality that California is teaching to young people, and the more they highlight Harvey Milk, the more they are simply promoting a sexuality that just is a complete rebellion against God, against His standards for us, His good and healthy standards for sexuality that God has established for all of us. And so any society that embraces the exact opposite, they're only reaping a whirlwind of hurt. And we can all look around our society and see the wounded, hurting people that have embraced all things LGBT. And we should have compassion and love for folks who are struggling, but it's not loving to encourage them to embrace their sinful natures, right? God calls all of us to repentance and faith, and to pick up our cross and follow Him, because that is what's best for us, right? And so, as Christians, we need to continue to advocate for that. So, I'm glad to see a lot of the Republicans not voting for this. And so, a few years ago, they started to vote for it, but so I'm glad to see they're not doing that anymore, except for that one brand new senator. But so that's the reason we bring it up. And we also notice that if you start voting for these resolutions, legislators start to compromise on other bills as well. So, and these kind of, for the next month or so, we're going to have all kinds of resolutions introduced promoting homosexuality and gay marriage and transgenderism. There's going to be Pride Month is next month. And so you're going to see the state legislature and all your local governments start to celebrate all things LGBT in an attempt to really change the morality of the community. They want people to embrace these new sexual values, and Christians have a right to stand up and say no. We think this is wrong, and here's why, right? So.
Absolutely. And with that, Greg, with everything you were saying, we're not going to just sit back and just say, well, it's a lost cause, or, well, this is what California is thinking. We're going to stand up for what's right. We're going to stand up for what's true. And we're going to be doing that next month as what the culture is calling Pride Month. We are going to stand up for what is actually right. And we're going to co-partner with the Change Movement for a Speak Out event. And I want you guys just to all see this video clip before we dive into the details about the event and what the Change Movement is.
Well, we have big news. I'm Ken Williams. This is Elizabeth Wanning. We're the founders of Change Movement. And we have been invited by California Family Council to come back to the Sacramento Capitol and speak out again. Many of you will remember that when we first began, change was birthed really on the California Capitol steps in Sacramento. Here we are speaking out and letting the legislators of California know we exist. People can struggle with LGBTQ identity and leave it and live amazing lives. And we should all have the freedom to do that.
As you know, across the world, people who are trying to leave LGBT culture to follow their faith are finding more and more pressures. In fact, in some countries like Australia and Canada and some places in Europe, it's illegal to share the gospel with someone who identifies as LGBTQ in an invitation to leave that culture.
So we are going back again. We're putting on this awesome event. So come and learn all about the issue on the 11th, and then on the 12th, help us speak out to the legislators, hear all of our public testimonies from the Capitol steps again.
But then also to remind policymakers and legislators that First Amendment rights are important across the board for everybody, and to remember that LGBTQ is complex. People deserve choice in how they respond to their own sexual identity.
We don't have funding for this. If you feel led to help give financially and make this event happen, please give to us at the link provided, or just come and learn and speak out with us so that you can really be equipped to change your world around you on this topic. God bless you.
So to register and learn more about that event, you can visit Change Movement /Speak Out. If you are watching on YouTube, Facebook, or listening on any of the podcast platforms right now, you'll actually see the link to that is at the very bottom of this episode's description. But Greg, you were there when the Change Movement came to life, and you were there that day they were talking about the steps of the Capitol. So walk us through maybe what that day was like and why we're doing this again on June 11th and June 12th.
Right. This was all in response to a bill that was introduced by Assemblyman Lowe, Evan Lowe. He was the chair of the LGBT caucus at the time. This was back in 2018. It was AB 2943. This was a bill that said that it's going to be considered consumer fraud if you help anyone change their same-sex attractions or gender confusion or any associated sexual or identity behaviors, right? So even if you were helping someone be celibate, somebody who was married to someone of the opposite sex and they were trying to save their marriage, yet they had these unwanted same-sex attractions, you could not offer any help to them to stay celibate. And you couldn't have any counseling, just talking with them as a pastor or as a counselor, especially in the context of a retreat where you're paying for it. So if money was exchanged at an event that people paid for, and then they were encouraged to change, told change was possible, all of that would be considered consumer fraud. So there's a huge umbrella. They call it conversion therapy. This is a term that's thrown out there. It's not something you can actually go and find if you look it up on the internet. You can't find this kind of therapy. It's kind of a pejorative. But what it does is it includes a whole gamut of ways over the years people have tried to change same-sex attraction. Some of the stuff we would never endorse. They always bring up electroshock therapy. That's not what we're talking about here. But the definition of conversion therapy also includes simply talking to a pastor about your unwanted same-sex desires. It includes, getting any kind of counseling or reading any kind of books to leave an LGBT identity and behaviors that is not compatible with your faith, and you want to follow Jesus, and you want to identify with Jesus and not your same-sex attraction. Any help that was provided in that direction was going to be considered illegal under this bill. And so all these former LGBT folks came together. They formed this group called Changed, or the Changed Movement, and they all came to the Capitol and told their stories of how God had changed them through various methods. Sometimes they were in the discipleship program at church. Sometimes they just had some counseling that they did. It was all kinds of people's stories were wide and varied. And they were simply arguing for, hey, I should be able to talk about whatever I want in a private conversation. I should be able to pursue what identity I want and what it's based on. It's none of your business what I'm talking about with my pastor. And so that's what the bill was about, was preventing private conversations that were happening between pastors and counselors and their counselees. And so the bill went all the way through the system. It almost, the very last day, the last vote, the author actually decided to pull the bill miraculously. I think he saw the writing on the wall. Lots of pastors were upset. They realized really this was outlawing the gospel itself. Because what Assemblyman Lowe is upset at most is that the implication that something about his identity and his behavior when it came to his gay identity was supposed to change, right? And he thought that should be outlawed, that's psychological torture, as he and Senator Weiner called it, which is a preposterous idea. And so all these folks who came to the Capitol, they really did change the arguments around all of this, because the legislators really had nothing to say. How are they going to explain all these people who said that they're now happier now that they're not a lesbian, or they're not gay anymore, or they're not, they don't believe they're the opposite sex, right? And they have families and children, and the legislature says, well, we need to protect you because hearing those things is going to result in you killing yourself. So we're bringing them back. They're going to tell their stories again. The legislators that are at the Capitol, most of them have never even heard of them. Since 2018, we have like 100 new legislators out of the 120 that are already here. So most people have never heard of them. So I'm excited. It's a great biblical response to Pride Month.
Absolutely.
Right? So anyway.
Yeah, so definitely join us in Sacramento on Wednesday, June 11th and June 12th. June 11th, it's kind of going to be a day of symposiums. And so you're going to see one. I'm going to just let you guys in on some of the different titles of the sessions. Maybe you guys will think they're interesting. But so we're going to talk about societal and culture impacts of gender ideology. We're going to talk about scientific integrity versus ideological capture. We're going to expose bias in gender research. We're going to talk about trauma and gender identity, uncovering the underlying issues. And then that's all going to be going on Wednesday, June 11th, and Thursday, June 12th. We're going to have a rally at the Capitol that morning. So we're asking you guys to join us for that. Be there at the rally, register for the event. So again, it's at the bottom of both the descriptions, or you can just visit changemovement.com/speak out. But that's going to be a great day. So definitely register. We'd love to see you guys all there. And On the topic of gender ideology and what is a result of that is we've seen it here in California, the issue of boys and girls sports. So if you've been following along on our social media, on our newsletter, and even on the podcast, you would know that right now in CIF, which is the governing body of high school sports in the state of California, there is currently a boy beating his way through the girls categories in triple jump, long jump, and high jump. And we are watching girls set PRs. So it's like their new record, their personal record. We're watching girls set records for their schools in triple jump and long jump. And yet this boy is still coming in first, stealing that first position from them. And yes, this is a result of what this boy is doing, but also a direct result of what CIF is allowing to happen. CIF knows that this is an issue. They are aware of the boy competing in girls' sports, and they're doing nothing to protect girls' sports. They just keep claiming their hands are tied by the state. They have their own policies in place that are allowing boys and girls sports, and doesn't just allow it, but teaches schools and athletic directors and coaches on how to directly onboard boys into girls sports. And so we've been talking with a lot of the female athletes that have had to compete alongside or compete against this boy. And just, it's heartbreaking to see and hear how much this can mentally mess with them, knowing that they might not make it to the next round. They might not make it into finals because of this boy. I've chatted with one of the girls that got beat out by him. She just had to be in the top 9, and she came in 10th, and he was in one of the top 9. And she just was like, this is all I've trained for, is to make it to the CIF finals. And now I don't get to go because of a male. And so it's heartbreaking to see what has been happening. He's now been competing. There's a bunch, when it comes to track and field, there's a bunch of different rounds to make it to the state meet because there's so many track and field athletes. And we've watched him compete the past 2 weekends. He took first in triple jump and long jump this past weekend. And yeah, there's been some brave girls in the situation. I want you guys to see this video of Reese Hogan. So Reese Hogan is one of the female athletes that's been competing against him. She got second in triple jump. So she really got first, but she got second because he stole that first title. And you guys are going to see on this video that they were taking their podium picture. He was on first, she was on second. And when he got down, she stepped up and claimed her rightful position on that first podium spot. So let's check that out. So proud of her for stepping up and doing that. She's spoken out at a press conference that we hosted. She just understands that this is wrong and that CIF is who's at fault for allowing this to continue to happen. But I just want to emphasize something about Reese Hogan. For that triple jump, her score, so second place, 37.2. That's the mark she was at for triple jump, 37.2. Then the boy, A.B. Hernandez, his mark was 41.4. That's a pretty significant difference. When you look at Reese's mark to the fifth place girl is 35.9 to 37.2. And yet the first and second place is that big of a difference. 41.4 to 37.2 is crazy. And I also want to note, when Reese hit that 37.2, she not only set a new PR, a new personal record, she set her school's record. She set her school's record, and yet this boy still came in first. He's from Harupa Valley High School. And so we saw him take the spot there. We also saw him take first in, he took first in long jump. And the girl who came second to him has been speaking out. So in long jump, he hit the 19.275 mark. Katie McGinnis, who came in second because he stole first, hit the 18.9.5 mark. And Katie has spoken out about this, and her message is clear that no matter how hard she tries, that there's these biological advantages that this boy has, and she's calling on CIF to do better and to help them out. She had a great quote on a news hit that she did, and Katie's a senior in high school. this is her last chance at CIF and getting a title in the high school level. And she states in a news interview, winning CIF has always been a goal of mine, and I just wasn't able to compete with someone who's genetically different than me. And how sad for her to get up there. And she was sharing too that, when he went, she saw, they run, they do their jump, and then the little scoreboard right by them, it lights up and says their mark. So it lit up. She saw his mark, the 19.275, and saw, okay, how do I beat that? How do I hit that? Knowing that it's not easy to hit that he has this biological advantage. And she then she did her long jump and saw that it hit, and she hit 18 dash 9.5. And instead of being like, oh, I got a great score. Oh yes, like I'm first, or oh, I barely just got beat out by another girl, but I'll get it next time. Just the automatic defeat, knowing that she tried as hard as she could, came in second in CIF Southern Section Finals because she can't biologically beat this male. And so the whole situation has been heartbreaking to watch, but we are calling on CIF to fix their policy. We're calling on CIF to follow Title IX, which supersedes the state law that's allowing boys into girls sports. And we're calling on CIF to protect girls sports. So we've launched a petition. So if you head to californiafamily.org, you'll see the petition there. It's also all over our social media page. It's in our Instagram bio. We already have 10,700 plus signatures, which is amazing. We are going to be delivering this petition to the hands of CIF at their June 20th meeting. So we have a little less than a month to continue to gain signatures. So if you have not signed that petition, please, please, please go sign that petition. CIF needs to know that Californians are not okay with this, and that other people from out of state aren't okay with this either. They need to know the nation's watching them. And so this meet is still going on. The girls will compete again this weekend against the boy, and then we will see the following weekend, May 30th and 31st, will be the state meet, where this boy will not only be taking these titles away from Southern California girls now, but this will be all of the top girls in the state of California that made it to long jump and triple jump. The top girls across the state are now going to have to compete against a boy, and it's heartbreaking. It breaks my heart to watch happen. And so that's why us as a community, we need to stand up, sign this petition, and bring awareness to this. Share the social media posts about it, the videos of this happening. The Californians need to see that this is actually happening. But that's my little rant about this.
Well, good job, Sophia, all your work on this. You've really raised the awareness to folks, and a lot of people sadly wait till these laws affect them personally, despite we've been warning people this is going to happen for years, right? And now it's starting to happen, and they're hoping we just get worn out, that this becomes an acceptable thing that all the girls are going to have to deal with. But what's going to happen? More and more boys are just going to identify as girls. The more transgenderism is taught and introduced into our curriculum, the bigger percentage of people who are simply going to identify as something other than a woman. All it takes to be on the women's team is not to identify as a woman. You can identify as non-binary or some other gender that isn't particularly a woman, but it's not a guy, right? And so that's going to leave it completely open to almost anyone is just going to flood the girls' teams. And why have a girls' team if we're not going to keep it for girls' bodies? I mean, that's the only reason you have a separate girls and boys team, because there's an obvious acknowledgement that sex, the biological differences between the sexes, it has a real effect on how you compete. Otherwise, why are we doing separate male-female sports? It'd just all be intramural. So, folks, this is only happening because so many people don't say anything. That's why it's happening. People just turn a blind eye. They keep voting for legislators who do this, and so we only have ourselves to blame. But we can turn around. We can acknowledge. Okay, everybody needs to acknowledge that they needed to be able to do something. That just don't take it. And we change our who we vote for. We advocate for policies no matter where we are. We're not going to let this happen anymore. And you didn't mention what the girls have to endure, not just on the field, what they have to endure in the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. Having
that's
to
appalling.
The locker room.
Yeah. Why do we have separate locker rooms for boys and girls? Why? Right? I mean, just so, folks, this is everybody's problem now.
Absolutely.
Stop saying it's somebody else's problem. It is everybody's problem. You don't have to have kids in sports or a girl in a sports team to get involved. So everybody's got to do a little something, even if it's all you're going to do is sign the petition and share it with your friends.
Yep. So, exactly. Yeah. The like you said, Greg, everyone can do something about this, and the easiest, simplest thing where you can do that will take you literally 30 seconds is sign that petition and text it out to your family and friends. Sign that petition and share it on your Instagram story. And if people are like, this isn't happening, head to California Family Council's Instagram page. You will see plenty of videos of this actually happening, of the boy competing, of the different stats. So please, if you're looking again for the petition link, head to californiafamily.org. It's linked at the top of our web page. It's linked at the bottom of this description as well. But sign the petition and share it with friends. We need Californians' voices to be heard. But we will keep you guys updated with that, because that will be going on the next 2 weeks as well. But with that, Greg, unless you have any final words.
I don't have any final words.
All right, then we will see you guys all next time.